Have you seen The Wire? What, you've never seen The Wire? You really need to see The Wire. Can't believe you've never seen The Wire. But you've seen Mad Men, the Danish version of The Killing for Bridelsen. Have you looked up House of Cards on the internet? And you finished watching Breaking Bad yet? Well, no, I've still not seen 24. I've only watched The Walking Dead episodes 1 to 4. Still got that Homeland box set that you loaned. I've been told I need to start watching Game of Thrones first. Penelope, I can't keep up with all this stuff you're recommending me. I don't know what I should do, I just can't get through these TV dramas I'm supposed to. And what I don't get is how you find the time to watch so many box sets and still watch normal TV, like Come Dine With Me, and go to work and eat and drink and sleep. There's just not enough time in the day to do all that.
Go! Ladies, gentlemen, and undefined, welcome to Cordkillers. Our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so you can watch what you want, when you want, where you want it, on any device you damn well please. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, man, I'm Brian Brushwood, but I'm not the person you should care about. You should care about, was it Brett Domino? Is that who was the person who made that song? Head on over to his channel. That was really good stuff, and I identified with it.
At first, I thought it was a musical version of our early episodes on Frame Rate.
Yeah, no, I believe it. Yeah, Brett Domino on YouTube is what you want to look up, and it's called Penelope. Please stop recommending so many TV dramas.
He notes in the notes that Penelope is just a musical device. He does not, in fact, know Brian's daughter.
Yeah. Well, also, my daughter probably would not recommend those to a stranger that she's never met.
That's the other way. You know. Hey, we got a guest today. Very excited to have Philip Shane, documentary filmmaker, with us. Congratulations on Dancing in Jaffa.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I'm just so psyched. Like I said, I'm a long-time fan of this show.
That's awesome. What, tell us a bit. Is it Jaffa or Jaffa or
this show is?
Tell me a bit about the movie.
We would say Jaffa.
Jaffa
or Jawa. You know.
Okay.
Jaffa. Jaffa is a suburb of Tel Aviv in Israel. If you haven't heard of it. Yeah, it's an amazing story about if anyone ever saw, there was a documentary called Mad Hot Ballroom that came out a number of years ago about an incredible dance program in the public schools in New York, but it's also all over the world. And the founder of it is this amazing ballroom dancer, Pierre Dulaine, 4-time world champion. And basically the story of the movie is just, it was his lifelong dream to take this dance program, which is for 5th graders, take it back to Jaffa, where he is from, in Israel. His mother was Palestinian. His father was in the British Army. And he was forced to leave when Israel was founded. There was a war. You may have heard of it. So it's an incredible story, you know. But basically, he goes back and says, "I'm not going to change the world by doing this, but I may change some lives of some children and maybe bring some peace and some hope to them." So it's a really sweet story. It's a great way to learn about what life is like in a world you probably don't know a lot about.
That is awesome. Now you are doing it's in theaters right now, but then also you're doing direct to video on demand.
It's interesting. If you know, the producers all took care of that. It's Sundance Selects is the company that's releasing it. They used to be IFC, or it's still called IFC, and so they're handling all that. And they said, you know, at the beginning, oh, we're going to be in theaters and we're going to be on demand. And I was curious. I was like, well, does that mean Netflix and iTunes same day as theatrical release? And they said no. So it's certain cable networks. I guess it's on that, you know, on demand channel.
Got it. And but that's fantastic. That's one of the things that that one of the ongoing themes of before there was Cordkillers, when we were doing Frame Rate, we were covering various, you know, simultaneous releases. And I'm glad to see. Check in with us later and let us know how it goes. Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, you know, check the theaters for it.
Yeah, look for it in a theater near you. Shall we acquire our primary target, Brian?
No. Wait, yes.
Correct answer is yes.
Okay, good.
And it's already acquired. Wanted to combine a bunch of different stories here. that are sort of bucking the trend a little bit of what we normally see. For instance, ESPN, citing Nielsen numbers, made a big deal of saying that 75% of millennials, those are people born like late 80s, 90s, are paying for TV. They're like, that number's been solid for years. Now, keep in mind, this is ESPN talking about their view on Nielsen numbers. So they may be just talking about ESPN. But they say 75% of millennials paying for TV. Don't see any cord cutting over here. We also saw that Comcast added 26,000 video subscriptions, the second straight quarter that Comcast has gained video subscribers. It's not a lot, 26,000 compared to 383,000 that they added of internet subscribers, but still 2 quarters of adding subscribers on Comcast. And Time Warner Cable lost 34,000 video subscribers, but they gained overall, and their revenue went up. And again, 34,000, I mean, if you're going to say not a lot gained, it's not a lot lost either. So they're sort of, floating towards the line. What we're not seeing, Brian, is a huge dive in cable subscriptions in a cord-cutting effect.
Yeah, well, and I don't know. I've sort of relaxed my fantasy, my rage-filled Time Warner Cable hatred, where I want them to die in a fiery crash. And now I'm just realizing the cable companies are always going to be there. And again, we've talked about this before. My theory is that they're just running out the clock until they can secure the kind of agreements that they need, that they could transition everything over to some kind of over-the-top service. I am surprised that I had thought that as not so much the cord cutters, because I think there is merit to the argument that there aren't as many cord cutters as you think there are, but the cord nevers, the neverers, I really thought would start to accelerate the anti-cable trend. But the fact that it's not, that we're seeing not necessarily no one data point makes a line, but it is surprising to me.
Philip, what do you think? I mean, I could explain away ESPN saying, well, they're talking about a sports audience, and sports are the least likely to cut the cord. And I could dismiss Time Warner Cable and say, maybe it's not losing much, but it's still losing. But if you want to make a cord cutter argument, it's hard to explain away 2 quarters of Comcast growth. If you had to guess, how would you think they're doing that?
Well, I mean, my one question would be, is it a bounce? Is it just, oh, this is a momentary thing, and then it's going to dip radically again coming up? Or, I mean, it's interesting. I talk to a lot of friends who are pretty savvy technically, but maybe not quite the cord killer audience, audience of this show. And they all ask me questions, and then they say, oh, it sounds like a lot of work. Even, still even podcasting to some degree, a lot of people are just barely starting to get that now. So it may just take longer than we think is going to happen.
Yeah, and keep in mind also that yes, the cable industry assures you that the cable industry is doing just great. Sincerely, the cable industry. Yeah. And I want to not make sure I get colored incorrectly. I personally was not happy with my Time Warner experience. I am totally ambivalent on who or whether or not they survive, as long as we get to watch what we want when we want on whatever device it takes. Hopefully not at price gouging agony, all you can eat buffet prices, which is what they're doing right now.
And that's why it's odd to me. Like, if this is the economy turning around, one would think you'd see it in Time Warner Cable. But maybe there's some alternate explanation where the regions that Time Warner Cable exists in are not feeling the economy improve as much as the regions that Comcast operates in. And remember, those 2 companies are wanting to merge. In fact, Comcast just announced that they would ditch 3.9 million subscribers, mostly to Charter, if the merger is approved. So they're doing everything they can to convince the regulators that they want to play nice. I think that I really am at a loss to explain why Comcast is adding subs, other than people saying, you know what? I actually do want television. It's just a matter for me of like, why in that region and not the other? Is Comcast superior to Time Warner Cable in some other way? They both have that HBO package, right?
Yeah.
But the Comcast one is actually more expensive than the Time Warner Cable one. So it can't be that. It must be just regional economics. That's the only thing I could figure. In which case, it goes to your point, Brian, which is or maybe actually a little bit to your point, Brian, about, this cord cutting revolution is not moving as fast as some people would like you to believe. Also, it goes to the point of what Philip was saying, which is that there isn't the easy way to do it yet. And so there may be people who experiment and go, I'm just going to go Netflix and Hulu, and then realize, oh, but there is that one thing I want to watch, whether it's live sports or whether it's I have to watch Game of Thrones live, Mad Men live, or whatever.
Think about it. We didn't consider how much of this could be churn. How many of these new subscribers are really old subscribers coming back for Game of Thrones? Because that was my plan. With that, I've canceled cable 2 or 3 times and just said, well, I'll get it back when for Game of Thrones or this or that or whatever. So there could be a certain amount of that. I don't want to speculate wildly, but I'm pretty good at that.
I wonder also how much of it has to do with, if people are moving. We just got rid of, we had Verizon as cable. We still have Fios. But this thing with the bundling is so crazy. And I don't know if Comcast or any of the other companies also are amping up their bundling with, just to get internet, you have to get it's actually cheaper to get it with cable.
Yeah,
than to just get the internet by itself.
Well,
I'm forced to take.
And Comcast may just be
channels.
better at that game than Time Warner Cable, right?
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. I wouldn't be surprised if think about this. So you said that they got 300,000 plus new internet subscribers, right?
383,000 internet subscribers.
So imagine
26,000 video subscribers.
Right. Okay. So imagine this. That is a very wide base. And imagine if institutionally they've been told every single person who's calling asking just for internet, offer them a cheaper deal if they take cable as well. Like explain that they will, and again they do a good, I'm using air quotes, job of suckering you in with 3 months free or reduced, and then eventually it pops back up. So they're probably just offering really sweet incentives on this. In which case I totally believe that. In which case this would not be an accurate metric of people's interest in the traditional cable model.
And they do that bundling. A large reason is for statistics, I think.
Yeah. And if you look at Time Warner Cable, they gained 269,000 data subscribers, internet subscribers. They gained 107,000 voice subscribers. We want to talk about cord cutting. Something that's real about cord cutting is people getting rid of their telephone lines and going to just using cell phones. And yet Time Warner Cable still added 107,000 voice subscribers, and they still lost 34,000 video subscribers. So it is not a market that this is what I'm going to pull out of this. I'm just figuring this. I'm coming to this conclusion right now, is that this is a market in confusion. Nobody knows what the best thing to do is, right? I'm talking to Tons 1999. That's why I was a little distracted there. In the chat room, he's like, yeah, but you can get 88% over the air. I'm like, yeah, we talk about this all the time on Cordkillers. It's not about what you can get cutting the cord. It's about what you can't. Even if it's only a small percentage, there's that one thing that somebody really wants and really loves to do. Like my wife loves to watch Mad Men and be on Twitter while everyone else is watching it. You cannot do that without cable. You can buy it the next day, but that's not the same experience. Other people, they want to watch live sports, and you can't watch your in-market live sports without cable or in some cases over the air, but most of it you have to get on cable these days. So I think this is just a confused market, and it's just waiting for that disruption. Whether it's the cable companies to finally get it together and say, here's the package that fits your needs. It's TV everywhere, and it's Netflix involved somehow. Or it's somebody to come and go, you know what, we're going to give you internet over the television, and that will free you, and you won't have to do the cable companies anymore. But it's a marketplace where everybody's looking around going, none of these solutions work for me.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to our secondary target, sir?
I was just going to say that, yeah. This is going to change everything. Speaking of screwing up the market, so Aereo appeared before the Supreme Court last Tuesday, the day after Cordkillers. We talked a little bit about it last week. Lots of questions from the Supreme Court judges. We won't find out till later this summer how they rule, but reading the tea leaves makes me feel like Aereo is going to lose this. And the reason is we got lots of questions on how do we make sure they don't affect other businesses? Lots of like, yeah, but how is that different than Dropbox? How is that different from a music service? How do we make sure we use the, Justice Breyer said, how do I make sure I use the words that don't impact these other services? You got a lot of attention paid to whether Aereo needed to have individual antennas. There was a lot of justices saying, yeah, but you're just using the antennas to get around the public performance, to get around the copyright law, right? It's not, there's no other reason. All of this sounds to me like they want to rule in the broadcaster's favor and say, look, I'm sorry, Aereo, you can do this little dance, but this is a public performance, no matter how you talk about it, because it's originating in your house. There was a lot of talk about where the copy originates and how it gets there and how that's different than buying an antenna or even renting an actual antenna yourself. I think they want to rule that. They want to rule it narrowly so it does not affect something like a cloud storage service. And I think they're going to remand it back to the district court and go, yep, Aereo's a public performance. We don't know what that means. You figure it out, lower court.
Yeah, I'd hate to say it, but I think you're 100% right. Specifically, what really, the moment my heart sank is reading the exact use of the word circumvent. Like, well, this whole way of setting up appears to circumvent the law. And it's like, when in actuality, yes, everyone agrees it's a stupid Rube Goldberg system that you would never design from scratch. It is also the system that your laws insist. This is not circumvention. This is compliance. This is, if the answer is, why did you make this ridiculous setup? You're like, because this is the only legal way to do it. And that's not circumventing. If I'm riding, it's kind of like harping on me for doing 55 miles an hour because, I mean, I'm this close to speeding. I'm all the way at the speed limit. I cannot legally go faster than this. If I was even 1 mile an hour over, I would be in blatant violation of the law. What do you try to do? Get around at 55 at the maximum possible speed, you know? And I don't think it looks good.
I think it's less about that and more about the court saying, well, you don't really have an extension cord. You're not really renting an antenna. In fact, the only reason you have micro antennas is because you want it to look like you're doing that. But the fact is, the end result is the same, which is pretty much what the Utah court found, right? The end result is the same as a public performance. You had Justice Breyer in there saying, how are you not a cable company? You look like a cable company to me. You know, what's the difference? So I really think they're going to say it's the result of what happens. Like, you're pulling down copies of a broadcast and then sending them back out. And to us, that is a definition of public performance. Philip, do you have a read? Do you have a feeling on how this is going to go?
I totally think they're going to lose, unfortunately.
Oh.
One of the things that seemed like it doomed it for me was that doomed it for them was, as Chief Justice Roberts said, look, I know what you guys are just trying to get around something here with your Rube Goldberg invention. And he said, that's okay. That's what lawyers do too. And so it's like him saying, look,
which he's like, what you don't realize is I'm going to play the same game, and I'm going to do a Rube Goldberg ruling on this, so I can kick it back, and I don't have to take responsibility. And that's, I don't know, it really did. It was like they were sketching out. It's almost, I don't know. We'll see how close it is.
I just can't see them just making such a massive disruption to such a huge, well-established business like the networks right now for this. You know. I don't see the Supreme Court taking this massive stand for the freedom of the viewer, you know, and all the talk about Dropbox that's crazy too. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Aereo is so not Dropbox. What are you talking about? But the fact that they keep leaning on that, it's almost like we got this thing prepared and this is what we're going to sit on.
Yeah, we're having a bit of a Skype hiccup.
Try to sound smart, you know?
But the biggest thing to me is the fact that when you read the transcript and they are, you know, again, focused on the private performance versus public performance, it's as though because there's such a clear path for them to narrowly rule on it and kick it back to other folks. I mean, it's almost certainly going to be what they're going to do.
Yeah, it felt like they're saying, if we're not careful and we just say nobody can put something on the internet and stream it back over the internet without calling it a public performance, that could impact Dropbox. And there are, of course, a lot of amicus briefs about that. Aereo was arguing that as well. And I think the justices very legitimately don't want that to happen. They wanted to tease out what's the difference. And the difference is essentially who originated the copy. In Dropbox situation, what the broadcasters were arguing was you put it there, it's like a locker, and you pull it back out. Whereas what Aereo is doing is taking it from us and then giving it to you. And Aereo tried to say, no, we're not taking it from anywhere. We're not doing anything with it. We're not touching it. But it still leaves the difference of, with a Dropbox situation, I put my stuff in there and pull it back out. With an Aereo situation, I didn't have it in the first place. Whether it was taken from the broadcasters or it's just Aereo's argument of I'm hands off and it's just coming over the air like it would in your home antenna, it's still not something I had before.
Yeah, I agree. Well, hey man,
this is a depressing episode. We do not have like great news for the future of innovation. Tell me something good, Brian.
I'll tell you something good. There's 1,742 awesome people kicking in a few bits of pocket change. Some of you guys more than a bit of pocket change, and we certainly thank you over at patreon.com/Cordkillers. More than any other show I do, and I know you do a number of journalism-y shows, Tom. You're a bit of a journalist. Do you know that?
No, I just I'm a pundit. I just spout off. Okay. I don't actually do any journalism.
But regardless, it's I don't know. There's something so punk about being natively supported or just paid directly. Not beholden to anyone, being able to give our opinions, and then. And grousing about Aereo. And I love it. And it's one of my favorite moments of the entire week. And it's entirely possible because of you guys. We are, a quick announcement. We were talking in the pre-show. We're going to do another State of the Cordkillers address. And you just did a mini review that got released only to patrons, right?
Yeah, I looked at the Qplay because a few people in the audience were like, Qplay, man, you're forgetting about Qplay. Qplay is the thing. You gotta look at Qplay. I'm like, all right, I'm going to look at Qplay. So I bought the $49 device. I will say 100%. Think they have amazing customer service because I was unlucky enough to get a box that didn't work the first time it came. Oof. And I was dreading. You're always dreading like, I'm going to have to explain and get on the phone. No, I explained like, this is what I did and this is what's going on. And the guy on the other end said, great, sounded like a bad box. Let me send you out a new one and then just pop the other one in that box. There'll be an envelope in there for you to drop it in the mail and send it back to us and we'll try to figure out what's wrong with it. But no worries. Quick, easy, polite, friendly. So that part of it was great. In the video, I show what I think about the Qplay service itself versus what I think about the little dongle box that you have to buy.
Yeah, right on. Well, we want to continue to do more extra goodies for the patrons out there. And, of course, you guys also get premium early access to Spoiler in Time every single week. Otherwise, you have to wait for it to drop in the feed later on. But thank you, guys. Patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Can I just add also, from behind the Patreon paywall, it's a fantastic place to live.
Oh yeah,
thanks, Phil.
And seriously, it's great. And I speak for as one Patreon. It's amazing to be able to support you guys so directly. So
that's great, dude. Thank you so much, and it really means the world to us. Shall we? Do signals?
Well, it's time for signals intelligence, Brian.
Yeah, well then let's do some intelligent signaling.
And I'm happy about this because I feel like we're letting the patrons down with all of this. It's not necessarily bad news, but it's sort of like, it's murky future. This is good news. This is good for the future. Bloomberg saying Dish will launch their service of television over the internet by the end of the summer. We already know that they have Disney on board as part of their most recent negotiations, and everybody was a little surprised by that. Apparently, they're close to getting NBC because NBC has to say yes to these kinds of things as long as there's an equivalent agreement as a condition of Comcast buying NBC Universal. So they just got to work out the details of what an equivalent agreement is, and they should be able to get NBC and Disney on board. They're talking to A&E Television Network. They're talking to Time Warner Cable, or Time Warner Inc. They're talking to Turner Broadcasting and CBS. And apparently what's going on is the other networks are saying, look, if you can get 2 major networks and like 10 of the top-rated cable companies, then we'll jump on board as well. And so if they have NBC Universal and Disney, they have, well, ABC, NBC, Bravo, ESPN, the Disney Channel. They can make that case.
So explain to me exactly what this looks like as from the service. Is this a case where, I mean, is this the fabled fig leaf of cable authentication that I've been hoping for? Or what actually do you have? They install internet service. You don't have a dish. You don't have a cable. Just everything's delivered over your internet, right?
Yeah, they don't install internet service necessarily.
Okay.
You just sign up and say, I would like Dish's internet TV service, like Aereo. Yeah. Like you would sign up for Aereo.
All right.
And then you get whatever's in that package. I mean, that's my guess. we don't know. Dish hasn't made an actual announcement of what the service would be like. The only thing Dish has said is we've got Disney on board. Bloomberg saying their sources are pointing out all this other stuff. But we could take a cue from Dish's international service because they do provide that on Roku. And all you do is you pay your $15 a month and then you launch the app on Roku and you watch Dish International service. You don't have to buy any equipment or have an installer come or anything.
Yeah, because it's all essentially being slung from wherever they have their dishes for you, which basically like Aereo, except they are allowed to because they own the service.
Yeah, it's taking cable television and instead of delivering it over cables or over satellite dishes, delivering it over the internet to you.
Yeah, right on, man. Again, Dish continues to be my favorite innovators to watch.
Philip, does that sound like something that would interest you?
Well, I read that and I was like, oh, well, that's Aereo. Or this is what Aereo will become. In fact, it makes me think, oh, is that what's going to happen? That basically instead of individual apps, like for individual networks, you're just going to have a Comcast app or a Time Warner app or a web page or something like that, that they're then going to charge us, I don't know.
I mean, that's
$150 a month.
That's the problem, right? Is that part of what we love about Aereo is that they're able to do all that service and make it so easy to get for $8 a month. It's just going to be $80 or $100 a month to get essentially that same ability.
The Bloomberg article seemed to imply that it would be something like $20 or $30 a month, but I don't know if that's legit.
And you also don't know. I mean, I'm sure they'll have tiered packages, and you could get like a bundle for $30. But if you want the primo everything, give us $50.
The huge thing where it would be better than Aereo in some ways is Aereo having a DVR type thing where you basically almost set the time or set it to record and da-da-da. With a normal type thing that sounds like this might be, you would pretty much just have access to any of your shows anytime you want it. Which would be cool.
Theoretically, and that's where the apps would come in, right? Because what ABC does now is says, if you can log in with your cable subscription, we'll give you on-demand access to all this stuff immediately rather than making you wait 28 days or whatever. And so Dish could have those same sort of agreements where, hey, the Dish service, the Dish app gives you access to everything streaming. And then maybe they do some kind of, DVR service in there as well, the way Aereo does. But then you would also hopefully be able to log into these other apps and authenticate and be able to use them on your Apple TV and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
What I would love is for the name Dish to be maintained. So years from now, there's this crazy legacy thing. And I know where that name, I know where
they used to have actual dishes.
Yeah, it's like album, right? We don't actually have albums anymore. Even LPs weren't actually albums. In the strictest sense. Well, the question for me, though, is going to be, okay, is Dish going to be on an interesting piece of machinery? Is it only going to be on Roku? Is that going to drive Roku sales? What's the interface going to be like? That requires a lot of thinking on the hardware side of thing, which leads us to our hardware segment called Gear Up.
Yeah.
Brian and Philip, let me entertain you with a tale, if I have your permission.
Yes, I do love a good tale, sir.
A tale of two cable boxes. One on the western half of the world in the United States called Fan TV, although designed by a Frenchman, Yves Behar. Is it French? I don't know. I'm guessing it.
Is that
designed to look amazing? It's got a gesture-based remote. It mixes your cable television with your streaming services. And it's now available to pre-order for Time Warner cable subscribers for only $99. For that $99 on that box, you'll be able to get your Time Warner cable subscription sold separately, as well as Redbox Instant by Verizon sold separately, Crackle sold separately, and Target, Ticket, and Rhapsody. So it's a universe of cord cutting and cord loving all in one box, living together.
I mean, this is a delightful tale. It sounds like we're seeing the realization of Steve Jobs' dream of finally making the living room a reasonably pleasant experience to find your content.
Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom of Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and England, Project Ethan, according to the Telegraph, is Sky TV's effort to make their programming available through the cloud. So everything you get on Sky, this isn't the Sky box that looks like a Roku. No. This is everything through the cloud, letting you pause TV, and if you like, resume what you're watching on your smartphone. So you would be able to watch what you want, when you want, on
A couple
many
of devices
that please you.
This again sounds. I feel like there's a butt. I feel like there's show us your butt.
The butts are in the U.S. Fan TV doesn't have Netflix. It doesn't have Hulu. It doesn't have Amazon. In the UK, it's The Telegraph says sources are going to do this, but we haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so it's still just so much talk right now, though.
Yeah.
Do you believe this, Philip? You think this is going to happen?
As long as everything is so piecemeal, and of course you mentioned Steve Jobs, and that's the huge problem that he pointed out from the beginning. As long as they have to constantly try to pull together all these separate businesses onto any box, I don't. It's not a matter of it happening. I think even the Fan TV is out, I guess, but of getting actually what you want when you want. If I want Netflix and I want Hulu and these other things, I don't know that it's going to happen.
Yeah,
my biggest concern might be ultimately what would it actually cost when you buy all the services together.
Yeah, I believe it, and I think that the cost thing is not going to be as. I'm not as bullish on the cost being what we want it to be. But
for $99, okay, it's Eve Bahar designed. I'll give you a few extra dollars for that. I mean, I won't, but I understand. You're like, no, but it's a beautiful piece of machinery. It better have Netflix. Netflix is on everything.
Yeah.
It should have Hulu Plus because Hulu Plus is pretty much almost on everything. But then it comes back to Philip's point. Let's say they get over that hurdle and they figure out those negotiations and they add those apps. And I'm all happy, like, all right, I'm going to sit down. Maybe it's got Voodoo on there as well, which, Target Ticket is an ultraviolet supporter. So maybe you don't need it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I got to pay Time Warner cable rates. And I've got to still plug in that Time Warner cable service to the box somehow.
Right.
So do I have to have an installer come out? Is that something I can install myself? How's it going to work? Is it going to work well? And then I'm going to be paying $99 for the box, $70 for the service from cable, then my $8 for Netflix, then my $8 for Hulu Plus, and then all the on-demand stuff that I want to buy. Like, It certainly isn't saving you money.
Yeah, and then and all of a sudden you look up and you're spending like even more in every way than you could have with the most premium cable package, and still not getting everything you want. Again, it's baby steps, Tom.
Yeah, don't step on the baby on your way to cord cutting.
That's our policy.
We
don't care how controversial it is. Hey, man, there's multiple ways to support the show. I keep trying to get people to buy your stuff, but you keep telling me next week. What do you got?
Next week, the Sword and Laser Anthology will be out, and I will be telling people to freaking buy it because it's amazing. But
all right.
This week, you can't buy it yet.
No.
You can buy scam stuff, though, every week.
We just had a brand new release here. Here, click play on this little thing and see if we can see some of that footage. You don't have to play the audio. Kill the audio. But we put together we're calling it the Rogue's Revenge hat. It's a hat with reminder glyphs on it that remind you of all the nastiest pranks we've taught on the show. It's really stylish and cool if you can show some of the pictures on there. But sewn into the back, and this is one of those you're going to have to find out your local laws about whether or not you could buy it. But there's a half pound of this buckshot stuff that's heavier than lead, and it feels comfortable. But like if you ever get in a scrape, like if you're worried about your own safety and someone jumps you, you grab this hat. The bill becomes a handle, and it's got a functional blackjack that you can break people's wrists with if you give it a big old crack on there. So anyway, a bunch of really clever stuff like that. We're adding some new stuff next week at scamstuff.com. I really dig all this stuff.
Please check local laws.
Yeah, please. That's like everything's the site. We're trying not to make it liability incarnate, but we're covering our butts with a lot of legalese.
Yeah, because you don't want to end up under surveillance, Brian.
I see what you did there.
Which is the name of our next segment.
Yeah.
Under surveillance. This is stuff that can be under your surveillance. It's stuff that is streaming or going to be streaming, and the new fronts are happening. Those are sort of like the upfronts, if you know what those are. These companies go and they say, hey, this is stuff that's going to be coming out. Would you like to sponsor us, help us out with it, whatever? Xbox Entertainment Studios chief Nancy Tellem is at the New Front advertiser meetings today in New York City, telling people about all the stuff that they've got coming to the Xbox, a dozen shows. Now, we've mentioned the ones that they're committed to before. There's the Halo TV series from Steven Spielberg. There's the Halo feature with Ridley Scott. Then there's that street soccer reality show called Every Street United. There's going to be live streaming of Bonnaroo. The documentary series Signal to Noise, which includes the Atari documentary. And they found, just as a side note, you guys, they found the ET cartridges this weekend.
No way!
Amazing. Amazing.
Dude, I don't know. Man, I'm very excited about what I've heard about this documentary because there's a friend of yours and mine, Tom, who I don't know if I was told in confidence that he's participating in it, but he's an author that is a natural fit for it. Oh, good. Ernie tweeted it out, so it's public. Yeah, Ernie Klein is out there right now to be part of that, out in his DeLorean. That's so awesome.
Now, Philip, you're a documentary filmmaker. How do you feel about documentaries getting game consoles as their initial form of distribution?
When I heard this, I was like, I wish that was my film. That is amazing. I mean, I have, by the way, I played E.T. I had E.T. cartridge, the game. So big fan here. And this story has fascinated me from the beginning. Anyway, this is totally awesome. I can't wait to see the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be, I think, 6 different documentaries in a series called Signal to Noise, or at least that's the working title. There's also Humans, which is the remake of a Swedish robot series. And then in development, they have Deadlands, which is based on the role-playing game, involves things like zombie sharpshooter, Western type stuff. Steampunk Western with zombies. I don't know. I never played the RPG, so I'm probably not doing it a good service, but it's something like that. Extraordinary Believers, which is the Robot Chicken folks, including Seth Green. Fearless, the unscripted reality show we've talked about previously with a Navy diver and former shark hunter. Gun Machine, based on the novel by Warren Ellis. A comedy half hour from Jash, which is Sarah Silverman and Michael Cera. And then Winter World, which is about the Earth encased in ice.
Yeah, right on. Or it's, I know it, Game of Thrones, which we're going to talk about later. Everything north of the wall. Yeah, man, good stuff.
Winter came.
That's right. They're like, would you quit crying about how winter's coming? It's here. Come watch this series.
Yeah, exactly. Are you... Other than, obviously, I think we're all kind of taken by this idea of like finding the ET cartridges and watching that. Humans sounds interesting to me, although I kind of now just want to go watch the Swedish one if it's subtitled and see what that one's like. Any of these others, the kind of thing that would make you really excited to have an Xbox or maybe even think of picking up an Xbox 360?
Well,
Spielberg and Ridley Scott are intriguing and yet scary because like they might blow it in a horrible way, but I'm pretty interested in that.
Well, you already know my position, Tom, upon which we disagree. What I think is really interesting is that they're going for very niche things that will appeal very much to a very small segment of people. Like our enthusiasm for this specific documentary about the ET thing is extremely, extremely high, like more than just about anything else that we're talking about. But it's also, again, very, very niche, which I think is a smart way for them to do it.
Something that just broke while we were doing the show, Yahoo has announced as part of this New Friends thing, their first 2 original TV series coming in 2015. The first show, Other Space, comes from Paul Feig of Bridesmaids fame, will be his first TV series since Freaks and Geeks, described as a futuristic comedy where humanity has conquered the galaxy and grown bored with intergalactic adventures, and a ship then discovers an alternate universe.
That sounds awesome.
And then director Brian Gordon of The Office and executive producer Mike Tollin of Varsity Blues are teaming up for a show called Sin City Saints, centered around a Silicon Valley tycoon who buys a fictional basketball expansion team in Las Vegas, only to discover that running a major sports franchise is a lot more difficult than he expected.
I heard the record scratch in there. Running a franchise is harder than he thinks.
Good talent behind both of those shows, but yeah, definitely the first one sounds a lot more interesting to me than the second.
Look at how much the entire landscape has totally changed since the massive success of the Netflix game, House of Cards experiment. They took a huge gamble by paying a lot of money for some top quality talent, and they got extraordinary television that got them Emmy nominations. And did they win an Emmy? Did they win one?
I think they won one Emmy.
But
right?
but all of a sudden, oh, that's right. What's her name? Won.
Right.
Claire. Yeah. She. But now all of a sudden, this is an established plan that you've seen has a track record of work, and you have all of these new media giants who are just sitting on cash, looking for the next thing, and then they can throw millions of dollars at this stuff. I think it's brilliant.
Tom, you asked a big question, which is, would it make you buy an Xbox? Would any of those make you buy an Xbox? That would be a big step. I don't know. I mean, that's a really good question. How much content are they going to have to make before people start to feel like, I've got to get that box, like I've got to get some other box that's going to give me a channel that I don't have on any other device?
They kind of have to have a Game of Thrones, right? They have to have that thing, The Wire. All of the episodes of shows that were mentioned in the song at the beginning of this episode. It has to be like that.
Right.
Of course, they have real games on the Xbox, so they don't need Game of Thrones. They just,
it's just of Thrones.
To get you to buy it for movies in addition to the games. Yeah, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to jump into the front lines?
Well, no. Breaking news, Brian.
What?
Just coming out right now. This is the second piece of breaking news. We had the Yahoo thing, which actually fit into under
surveillance. By the way, I'm
this
so glad to hear all of this, Tom, because normally you're so on point, and like 3 times I've asked you, and I'm like, he's clearly looking at something else. And so now that I know that it's all this breaking news, I feel much better.
Verizon's CEO Lowell McAdam has agreed to an interconnection agreement with with Netflix that will improve performance. Joris Evers, who is Netflix's public representative, said, "We have reached an interconnect agreement with Verizon that we hope will improve performance for our joint customers over the coming months. There are not a lot of details, but Engadget says it does sound like another paid peering agreement similar to Comcast's."
Now, who's paying in these cases? Are these Netflix ponying up the dough?
Yeah, in the Comcast one, they never announced the terms, but it sort of was leaked out by insiders that Netflix is paying a little bit out of this. There's not a lot of money thrown around, but they're paying a little. That is normal in paid peering agreements, where somebody says, let's look at the ratio. Ratio leans a little bit your way, so you kick a little money our way and we call it even. Peering agreements, true peering agreements from the heyday of the internet, we're peers. We both send each other the same amount of traffic,
right?
So we don't need to pay for an interconnect. So this paid peering is kind of a newer thing, and we could get into talking about transit providers and CDNs and all that sort of thing. This is very new in that it's a single company providing the content that's striking these kinds of deals here,
right?
But yeah, Verizon confirms. Terms are confidential, but Verizon CEO confirms they have signed a direct connection deal with Netflix.
Well, there'll be one of our frontline stories that's going to have something that bearing on this. Let's jump into the front lines.
Front lines.
It's not this one, though. Amazon's getting old seasons of canceled HBO shows. They're not getting Sex and the City. They're not getting Game of Thrones. And they won't get series like Girls or Veep or newer series until they're 3 years old. But HBO is selling shows to a rival streaming provider, which they've never done before. Philip, what do you think?
Awesome. I'll take old HBO. And I mean, a lot of these series, it takes me 3, 4, 5 years, even just like The Wire. It took me I must have been 5 years before I got into it. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. And
as a Prime member, I'm happy.
I mean, I guess it's not as far as like being able to at least watch them. I mean, you were able to buy a lot of these on iTunes, but it was, with delay and you have to pay for them. So in that regard, I guess it's good. I just hope it's complete series. That's the other thing. If it's 3 years later, then is it going to be where it's like 3 years from now, you only get season 1 of Veep?
It's bad news, Brian, because it means HBO isn't seeing them as a competitor for a future internet-only service.
Yeah, good point. Hey, man. Netflix posted a job listing for, a senior software engineer, quote, with a special focus in peer-to-peer networks. Part of the job responsibilities include, quote, research and architecture of large-scale peer-to-peer network technology as applicable to Netflix streaming. Hey, Tom,
Yeah.
That breaking news, the reason that Netflix is paying a lot of money because
Netflix sends more traffic to Verizon than Verizon customers send to Netflix, right?
That it seems like this may have some bearing upon it, and to me, this could be the biggest story out of anything we've talked today, but it's way too early to tell. But if Netflix is ponying out a little bit of dough now just to shut everyone up and get service back to, quality. But what they really want to do is invest in a new architecture that I'll take an extension on this, just let it run. That will let us, that would fundamentally change it to where all of a sudden there is no peering, and all of a sudden everybody's using peer-to-peer, and the bandwidth that all the users of Netflix have paid for is what's fueling the service. That would be huge. What do you guys say?
Philip, what do you think?
I'm pro jobs. Guy got a job. I'm happy.
Oh, yeah, somebody's got a job. That's job creation at work. No, that's a good point. I do think that this might be a little bit of Netflix going, well, let's see if we can change that ratio. It's going to be much harder to do this sort of thing on boxes, on mobile apps, than it's going to be on the desktop. Not impossible. But even if they just did it on the desktop and they start to change that ratio, it might be enough to renegotiate next time, Because the ratio is all built on how much is going in versus how much is going out. And if Netflix suddenly goes, actually, Verizon, your customers are sending quite a bit of traffic towards us, that could affect it. Don't forget, though, peer-to-peer means sending traffic to each other. So Netflix might not benefit because it might be that they're sending it straight to other people.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hey, Netflix announced Friday that cable companies RCN, Grand Communications, and Atlantic Broadband will offer access to Netflix services straight from their TV set-top boxes. If you're an RCN customer, here's how it works. Pick up your remote control, tune to the appropriate channel. Apparently in the District of Columbia, it's channel 450, and there's Netflix. You select the channel, and it launches the Netflix app.
So you remember this was another thing on which we disagreed. I didn't want to see Netflix offered as a service or premium from any cable provider. But as I realize that the complete detonation of the current model is very likely not going to happen, at least this is a step closer to being able to watch whatever you want. You just have to pay a ton of money to do it, likely. What about you, Philip?
Yeah, well, I think it's just, I have a family member who asked me recently, what channel is YouTube on? And I think there's a lot of people that just need to have that. They need to have that channel. And if it brings
it's just a way of tricking you into launching an app. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. The AT&T is teaming up with the Chernin Group. We've talked about them before, an investment group run by former Fox president Peter Chernin, quote, to acquire, invest in, and launch over-the-top video services, end quote. Apparently, the two companies have sunk $500 million into the venture. Now, this is an accurate way to portray it. Would it be also accurate to say that AT&T, who's refusing to play ball with Netflix, appears to be trying to create a competitor for Netflix?
Yeah, and Redbox Instant, right? Verizon already did this. Verizon sunk a bunch of money into Redbox Instant to create a competitor to Netflix. And so AT&T went to Peter Chernin and said, hey, we should do this too, because, hey, those FCC net neutrality rules can't last forever. Am I right?
Yeah, God, that's some scary stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants to have this. Everybody wants to be in this ball game. So, I don't know.
All right.
I think that's it. Hey, though, you know what's good, Brian?
What is good?
Our long YouTube on Roku nightmare is over.
Yeah.
All current generation Roku devices, which essentially means if you bought your Roku after July 2011, can now add the YouTube channel. They also support dial, meaning you can send video from a YouTube mobile app to the Roku box. So, Philip, if they ask what channel is YouTube on, you say it's on your Roku channel.
Yeah. And their answer is, what? That's a lot of work.
That's
a lot of work, is what they say.
Well, and as you know, Tom, I have gone on a hunger strike and said I will not support the keeping down of YouTube, and I will never buy a Roku until they offer it. And now they do. And so I'm making all of this up. Here, let's just jump on to the next one. Arrested Development's creator Mitch Hurwitz has signed a multi-year deal to create and produce a new original series for Netflix. Now, when I read this, the first thing I thought of is, like, does that mean that there's pretty much no chance of more Arrested Developments? Or do you see a world where he could invest all this time and effort into a new series and then also have more Arrested Development thrown in his lap?
That's a good question for Philip. Do you think Mitch Hurwitz could do more than one thing at once, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I wasn't sure how well, did Arrested Development blow people away in terms of popularity when it came back? I felt like it was a little bit tepid on the reception, so I'm not sure how excited they are about that.
Yeah,
but
it didn't seem like
Mitch
Netflix
Hurwitz
was crowing about how well it did, the way they always do about Orange is the New Black or House of Cards.
Right. Well, and also there was a yeah. I mean they yeah, whatever. I got nothing. So
well,
I
mean, you could definitely do two shows. The question is this a better idea? Can be, you know, and also it's Netflix getting top talent, really, and saying like, yeah, instead of Mitch Hurwitz developing an episode for Fox or ABC, he's going to develop for Netflix.
Yeah, agreed.
Sucking the air out of the room.
Hey man, you want to jump in on the movie draft?
Now that our long national YouTube on Roku nightmare is over, I am ready. I'm still in first place, and that's the end of the movie draft.
Yeah, okay, but there's a little bit more to it. What? I'm really curious at how big of a long tail. How long is the tail of Captain America? Because we've got Amazing Spider-Man 2 coming out this weekend, which means at that point, I mean, all of a sudden that has to become dominant at this point, and you're pretty much out of making money. Do you feel like $225 million was enough for you?
It's certainly not bad. I wanted 250. I'd feel really good about 250. It might scoot close to 250. Doesn't seem like it'll get another 25 million, but it might. And if it does, then I'm good. Amazing Spider-Man 2, I'm not hearing a lot of positive buzz about. It's just sort of tepid buzz, which would put Godzilla as the next big one with Team Morning Stream.
I just have a hard time believing Godzilla's going to make any. Godzilla seems like Battleship. It just seems like nostalgia paycheck cashing, and I don't think that it's resonating. I don't hear anybody saying that that's what they're excited about this summer. Philip, am I wrong on this?
You're absolutely right.
Oh, good. I like being right.
By the way, I don't see a single documentary on the movie draft.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Shots fired.
I thought How to Train Your Dragon. No? Is that? Oh, okay.
Well,
that was. No, it's not.
$1 Million Arm is not a documentary.
That's a good point. Why don't we have more documentaries, Brian?
Take that up with the commissioner, Dan Dirks. He's the one who picks the highest projected movies and throws them in there. I think it's because it's largely a popcorn thing, and yeah, and documentaries. My guess is has there been what is the highest grossing documentary in history? Do you know, Philip?
I believe it's Fahrenheit 9/11.
Oh yeah,
which
that would make sense.
Made an extraordinary, like over $100 million, and then it drops pretty steeply from there.
And we have had Roger Moore documentaries in the movie draft before because they are expected to, to ring it up.
Yeah. Wait, did you say Roger Moore?
I did, actually.
That's documentaries about the James Bond.
No, yeah, The Saint.
Yeah,
James Bond, Roger Moore.
All right.
Raker.
So I guess we got Amazing Spider-Man 2. To be honest, man, I think this could be the undoing of Slash Film. Slash Film did a lot of really good stuff, but if this thing underperforms, then there's a lot of trouble.
Roger and me is what got in my head. Damn it. All right. Yeah. So right. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is coming out this week. That's the whole point of this for people who aren't in the movie draft, and I'm winning, which is the whole point for people who are involved in the movie draft. Let's see what we're watching on screen.
Yeah. What are you watching, Philip?
Oh, Game of Thrones.
Oh, also, are you going to join us for spoiler in time?
Yes.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Cosmos, Mad Men.
I see you're watching Cosmos on Hulu, too. It's interesting how people watch Cosmos because sometimes I watch it over the air. Sometimes I watch it on Fox.com, but I know other people watching it on Hulu a lot.
I actually subscribed to Hulu for Cosmos.
Oh, so you watch it in the living room then using like Hulu Plus?
Hulu Plus.
Yeah, because I don't have Hulu Plus. I just watch it on regular old Hulu on my desktop.
I thought it was interesting, too, that you put Science of the Solar System, the Coursera course in here as well.
Yes. So this is, I don't know if anyone knows about Coursera. Coursera is a thing where you can take online college classes. I don't know if it's all college. Anyway, you can take classes. And watching Cosmos got me so hungry to know more about, I mean, I love science anyway, but I really wanted to get a little bit more detail. One thing you guys have always talked about when you talk about Cosmos is a lot of that stuff we do already know. And and I'd like to learn just a little bit more. So with Coursera, I signed up for a class at Caltech, actually, a very esteemed university, with Mike Brown, who's the astronomer who discovered large planetary body beyond Pluto, which essentially got Pluto knocked off the list as a planet, because it turned out there were a lot of other things. So anyway, it's fantastic. It's like ridiculously easy. And in fact, if some of the television network apps were as easy as Coursera, it would be incredible. You just subscribe. I literally can watch it on my phone. I might AirPlay it to Apple TV, and they come in. It might be like a 10-part lecture, 10, 15-minute lectures.
Now, are these closer to, like, because I've done a number of the teaching company Great Courses series where it's like 10 one-hour lectures, and there is a video element on some of them, but it's just a guy in front of a green screen. Are these like well-produced, or are they more like classroom setting lectures?
It's well produced. You can see they've been working on it for a while, but it is very simple. It's what it is the teacher is down in the corner, like over here.
Yeah.
And he's green screened out. So there's basically a giant whiteboard behind him. Sometimes they'll show images there, but basically that's a blackboard.
Yeah.
You know.
Right on.
And Orphan Black, I'm a big fan of too. 2 episodes into the new season. I know you're watching it, Philip. How do you like it?
Oh, sorry, which one?
Orphan Black.
Orphan Black.
Oh my God, Orphan Black. Oh, have you already gotten the second season? I haven't started the second season yet. But
You're still in the first season.
Finished the first season. I didn't even know the second one. I've been sitting here waiting for it to start.
It just started 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Oh, I can't wait to dive back in. Amazing.
Yeah, and it started with a bang. This past week's episode didn't let up either. Like they're killing it. Like the first season was good, but it's still paced. There's still parts where they're moving around slowly trying to find out the mystery. These first 2 episodes of the second season, they're just rolling. I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to spoil it, but I am really enjoying that show.
That's awesome. Anything else? Or I assume you're still watching The Shield, right?
I am. I watched episode 9 of The Shield. We can talk about that. Warehouse 13 is back. A little weird this week's episode, to be honest, but I love those characters so much. I don't even care about the weirdness. And it definitely had some good story arc moments as well. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., just really enjoying now that they've actually found a purpose. And they've even taken the twist and twisted the twist in classic Joss Whedon style. So I don't know, man. I'm loving everything I'm watching these days.
That's awesome. Now, I have not gotten caught up on Archer, but I did catch a couple of episodes of Rick and Morty, which now, as my brain has been Play-Doh'd into the right shape to enjoy, stuff that kind of turned me off early on with him belching in the middle of talking and all that stuff, and I'm hardly ever seeing the dribble on his chin anymore. But it's like, man, that show is so good, and it just runs everything up till 11. Really, really enjoying it. And we'll talk, of course, about Game of Thrones and Cosmos when a spoiler in time, and check in with how things are going with the Shield for you.
Time for some dispatches from the front.
Yeah.
Not the back.
Those are back at the front lines. Remember when we were just at the front lines? This is what we probably should. You know what? Now I think about it, we should have picked up the letters then.
Oh, you know what? It makes sense now that you put it that way.
Good.
Yeah. I'll have to remember that next time.
Hey, man, first of all, we got some feedback from people about the chat on screen, whether or not it's annoying or distracting or whatever. And get this, 100% of everyone who wrote in said keep the chat. One person said that he wished it was even bigger because it's hard to read when he's sitting in the back of the place.
Wow, so how many people did we get right in about that?
2 people wrote letters saying they like the chat.
Can I throw? I don't know if I would throw off the statistics here, but I'm not wild about it.
Ah, well, you should have written in because
2 out of 3 people surveyed support scrolling the chat.
This is why you got to vote. You don't get to complain if you didn't vote.
Don't blame me. I voted for chat.
We got a bunch of really good emails. It's more emails than usual this time, but I just couldn't throw any out. Adam writes us saying, hey guys, loyal patron here. Wanted to let you know that if you don't already listen or watch Star Talk Radio with Neil deGrasse Tyson, his last episode was really great. It's titled A Cosmos Conversation with Steven Soder. He's one of the original writers of the original Cosmos, and they cover a lot of things that you talk about on the show, such as the animation. I've not yet listened to the most recent spoiler in time, so he apologizes if we already know it. No, we didn't know it, but he says he loves the show and he loves seeing his name in the credits. That sounds great. I would love to hear that kind of behind the scenes stuff on this. I think it would alter, my experience considerably.
Definitely. Thanks for writing in, Adam. Also got this email from It's Ivor. Is that how you say that?
Oh, man. Yeah, I must have accidentally cut out his name.
IT Siver? Or anyway, most of the advertising on Detroit TV does take into account Canadians, he says, or she says. Many Canadians cross the border to do their shopping, as food and other products are cheaper here than in Ontario. I live on the border in a small town, and a good portion of groceries are sold to people who do not live in the United States. Many retailers here benefit, such as clothiers, grocery, and other businesses that are not restricted in some way due to duty fees when those products are taken through customs. So the advertisers on local Detroit stations are fully aware and are sold on advertising with people in Ontario. Okay, I have a follow-up question then, because that all makes sense to me. Do the ratings reflect the people in Canada? Or do the Nielsen ratings draw the line and go, nope, if you're in Canada, we don't count those ratings? Because it doesn't matter if the effect happens. If the ratings don't happen, then it's not going to be as helpful. So it has to be both there. But
well, I mean, I don't know, though. I mean, you could sell, for example, when we do advertising, we talk about like, well, there's the numbers of people you're definitely going to reach. For example, with Night Attack, we could just say, and we can't promise you anything, but look at this trending topic that happened. And
but you're on the internet.
Talk about the Halo.
There's no geo. You're not geo. I should say you're on the internet. You're not geo restricting your content.
Right.
If there is a Hulu situation is what we were talking about.
Right. No, okay, you're right. In that context,
this person was complaining like, I don't want over the air to go away because then I won't be able to watch it anymore.
Right. Well, and in fact, that's what Josh writes in about as well. He says his Aereo opinion is that he's conflicted about the case. He wants to root for them since he has a Windows Media Center set up with his own antenna. He fears the entire over-the-air business model dying. He cut the cord years ago, but he fears if the Aereo fight unintentional, it might push him back to Comcast if the broadcasters pull their shows off the air. Well, first of all, that's just not going to happen. Don't worry about it. Second of all, it also doesn't look real good for Aereo.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like you have to worry, unfortunately, or fortunately, Josh. Gabe wrote in and said, given how you keep us up to date with what we're watching, it would be neat should you guys use a service like Tracked.tv so your fans can easily track what you're watching and, more importantly, how you rated the material.
And that's T-R-A-T. Sorry,
yeah,
T-R-A-K-T.
there's another one that you can check in and share and follow with. It's the one with the stickers. It's really popular. Trying to find it right now.
Get Glue?
Get Glue. Thank you. Yeah, same kind of thing. So,
yeah,
I could do something like that.
I think, yes, that sounds awesome and would be a good way for people to share what they're doing. I'm a fan of my model of just running my stupid mouth off once a week on a show with Tom Merritt, because it feels like less work. But I do appreciate the suggestion.
And then, wait, is it mine or yours? I forgot.
This way, I'll take it. David said, hey, Tom and Brian, don't throw those first-gen Apple TVs away. They're worth a lot of money. I jailbroke mine and sold it on eBay for over $190 just 2 months ago. He used that money to buy 2 refurbished Apple TV 3s.
So Tom Merritt has the Apple TV first generation in its original box. It's jailbroken with XBMC, and we're opening the phone lines now. You can give us no, I don't know. I mean, yeah, wow, $190, really?
Yeah, no, I was amazed by that. But then again, eBay seems to everything goes for stupid expensive on eBay. It seems like, but yeah, I jailbroke mine too. I think I used the fire. Some kind of fire plug thing, whatever.
Yeah, you make the USB stick and then you plug it in and it becomes an XBMC. I did that too. Well, Philip Shane, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Honestly, this has been a real treat.
Oh, good. I'm glad. It was really fun having you along, even if you did hold our feet to the fire about documentaries in the movie draft, because we need that. It's important.
Well, we'll have like a token documentary in there, and then like because we're all afraid it won't make any money, it'll go for $1, and then your next week it'll be why is it the documentaries always go for $1? Why even include them if you're going to disrespect
and
them?
It'll be why aren't more Philip Shane documentaries included?
There we go.
Well, the documentary could be a tiebreaker. You could actually vote on how much money that film will lose. Like that score will just go the other way.
Or it's like you give it to someone as a punishment.
It's a hot potato.
Dude, thank you so much for being here. And of course, if you guys want to write to us, go to cordkillers.com and there's a little send us feedback thing. A lot of people are using that now. Or of course, you can write us at cordkillers@gmail.com. Stick around if you're live, and we're going to do some spoilering time. And of course, patrons get early access to that. Thank you guys so much.
Hey, Philip, if people want to follow you, where can they find your stuff online?
Philip Shane, that's with one L, Philip, Shane.com. And
see you later,
Philip
everybody.
A. Shane on Twitter.
Yeah.
Wow.